Hello, welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I am going to get us started here in 1 minute. We're just waiting for everyone to kind of slow down on joining in. And let's get ourselves started. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our Learning Libby with the Experts webinar. This morning, we're going to take you through the basics and then some of our favorite features of Libby. I'm giving you a solid intro. We'll take a little break in the middle, and let's dive right on in. So my name is Joe, and I am here from Overdrive. Overdrive, of course, is the maker of the Libby app. You might already be familiar with our original app, but we are proud to talk today about the library reading app Libby and all of her great features, really designed with users in mind. Aside from working for Overdrive, or what I do here at Overdrive, I am part of our digital Bookmobile team. So we have a big old truck that we take across the US and Canada, and we visit different libraries and schools and help introduce people just like yourselves to the Libby app. I do all of the planning, all of the background behind the scenes work, but I'm here with the other half of the digital Bookmobile team.
Good morning, I'm Marissa. I am Joe's partner in crime here at Overdrive on the Bookmobile team. I always give him a hard time and joke that he has the boring half of our job, all the desk work, stuff that I'd never want to do. And I have the fun part of the job, which is traveling with our digital Bookmobile to libraries and schools in North America and helping people learn how to use Libby. So I've helped thousands of people learn the getting started tips that we're going to show you here in the beginning, and then the tips and tricks for like the more advanced kind of features of Libby here as well. So we're very excited to be here, even if right now it is just virtually.
Yeah, we are always excited to get to show off Libby, whether it is through Zoom or on our Bookmobile. But as Marissa said, sometimes I have to do the boring stuff, so I'm going to take us through housekeeping briefly here. We do have closed captions enabled, and you can adjust those in your Zoom meeting controls using the box that says CC. If you have them turned on, but they block part of the screen, you can drag them to a different part of your screen using your mouse. If you have questions, feel free to ask those throughout the entire webinar. If one of us is talking or presenting, the other will be responding. You can type out those questions by tapping on Q&A, also in those meeting controls. So type out your question, send it through, and leave that box open because the answer is going to pop up under the Answered tab. If you'd like, you can ask questions anonymously. We are recording our webinar this morning, and you'll get an email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes a link to this recorded presentation. So we like to make sure everyone has the ability to review what we cover, see anything they'd like to again, kind of in their own time, or even if you have to hop off early, check out something after you left. This recording lasts for 30 days. The link itself lasts for 30 days, but you can download to keep it permanently. And because we are recording and you can kind of review after the fact, we recommend that you watch us as we go through the basics part of this morning's webinar and wait to, open up Libby on your device until after we wrap up this first portion here. So that way you don't miss anything. When you leave the webinar, a survey will pop up in your web browser. If you can fill that out for us, let us know what you thought. We'd greatly appreciate it. And we will be connecting iPads into the webinar this morning. Sometimes Zoom cuts off part of the display, but it's an easy fix so you can see Libby in her full glory. We'll have those instructions in the chat so you can not miss a thing. All right, so I'm going to take a second here to get connected and just go through a few things. Let's see. Of course, my computer is beeping left and right at me. There we go. All right. So the Libby app is available for download on Apple mobile devices, so your iPhones and iPads, Android mobile devices, your typical smartphones and tablets, things like that. Think like Samsung Galaxy or Google Pixel, pretty much any of your typical Android devices. And then last but certainly not least, you can use Libby in a computer by going to libbyapp.com. And all of the Libby experiences are going to be exactly the same, whether you're on Apple, Android, or libbyapp.com. Give me just 1 second here to triage. There we go, that's the problem. Sorry about that, folks. My iPad is being a little picky this morning. There's a certain nuance to being on Zoom and also having a device in your hand. Sometimes it's a little tricky of a connection. Now we're good. All right. So now that I'm all connected, we're going to take you through the download and sign in process. Now, the only thing that you're going to see different today is just where you go to download the device. If you're using Apple versus Android, once we're in Libby, everything is going to look exactly the same. So first, we'll download the Libby app. You'll head into your app store. If you're on Apple, it's blue. If you're on Android, it's a play button. It's a triangle with multiple colors. And once we get into our app store, we just need to tap into search. And I am going to type out Libby and then tap enter in my device's keyboard. When I do this, Libby is going to be one of the top results that pops up. And what we're looking for is right here, Libby by Overdrive, this maroon app with Libby reading her book. Now, the Libby app is completely free to download and also to use. You just need your library card and the app. So tap Get or Install on your screen next to Libby by Overdrive and follow your device's on-screen instructions to let that app download. Once Libby's all downloaded, we'll leave the App Store and we'll find that new Libby app on our home screen. And let's open up Libby for the very first time. Now, when you open Libby for that first time, she's going to have a few questions for you to help you find your library and get signed in with your card. You only need to do this the first time you get set up, and then going forward, Libby is going to remember your info so you can dive right back in to your reading. So, do you have a library card is our first question. I'll say yes. And now we need to find our library. Now, I recommend using this middle option. I'll search for a library. It's going to let me type in the name of my library, the city I live in, or my zip code. But I did want to quick point out this top option. So we'll go through, I'll search for a library like we're setting up our very first device. But once that first one is done, if you have a second device you want to use Libby on, maybe you have a tablet and a smartphone, you want to use Libby on both, you can use copy from my other device to pull all of your already set up info from that first device onto your second, and they'll sync up nice and easy for you. So just keep that in mind. But let's go into, I'll search for a library. So, all right, I'm gonna type in the name of our library, Adams. Let's see, we're probably going to have a few options that pop up. That's why I like that zip code option, because you can see you might be scrolling for a while here, but we can see right here, here's what we're looking for. There's our library name and the address. But what I would recommend typing in instead, if you're not using your zip code, is this name right up top, Ocean State Library's eZone. So this is the name of your digital collection. All of the different physical branches have access to this one shared digital collection in Libby. So this is what we're looking for, digital collection, Ocean State Libraries, and we'll tap on this box to choose it. From here, we're almost done. I'm going to tap on Enter Library Account Details. And now we just need to type in that library card number. It's going to appear on your card, usually under a barcode. And just enter all those numbers, no dashes or spaces. Once that card number is in, we'll tap on Next, and then you'll be prompted for your PIN. Now, of course, if you don't know your PIN, your library has given some help right here of what it might be. You could tap into that. If you end up not being able to sign in, maybe there's a problem with your card or you don't know that PIN number, just reach out to your library. They keep track of all of this info for you and will be able to help you out. Once your card number and PIN are entered, we'll tap on Sign In. And there we go. Our library card has appeared here on the screen. And now I see I can borrow up to 8 items at a time, and I can place a hold on up to 4. I'm going to tap Next to wrap up the sign-in process. And now we have access to our library's complete collection of ebooks and audiobooks. I'm going to hand it over to Marissa now, and she's going to take us through the basics, everything you need to know for your day-to-day life within Libby. Marissa is using a demo library from Overdrive this morning. We just like to make sure that we don't borrow anything y'all might be waiting for. Everything will look exactly the same or function the same. You just might see some collections and options in her library that aren't in yours. If you have any questions while Marissa is going through the process, I'll be hanging out in Q&A. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, thank you, Joe. So I'm going to get us started here with our basics of the Libby app. But right before we start, I want to double check that everyone can see the navigation bar at the bottom of my screen. So this is usually where Zoom gets a little wonky. There are 5 icons at the bottom of my screen: search, library, the Libby icon, shelf, and timeline. And if you cannot see those, then Joe is putting out the directions in chat one more time so that you have the way to change that Zoom ratio. Like he said earlier, it just takes a couple of clicks, and it's really important that you can see that navigation bar so you can follow along with me here today. So I am going to talk about all of those icons here at some point in the presentation today, but we're going to start out with the library icon. It looks like a little library building and says library right underneath it. It's that second icon within the navigation bar there. The library icon is what you're going to tap on when you want to browse your library's entire collection of ebooks and audiobooks. So I really want you to associate the library icon with walking through the library and seeing if something sparks interest. You don't know exactly what you're looking for when you're on that icon. You're just trying to see if there is anything that the library has to offer that you might be interested in. So up at the top of this page, you'll see some filters. These filters are a really great place to start. You could tap on Just Added if you want to see a list of titles that the library recently purchased. Popular and random do speak for themselves, so I'll skip right on over to Available Now. Available Now is going to be a list of titles that currently do not have a waiting list. So a really great option if you want to borrow something right away and don't want to wait for it. Lastly, we have subjects. This is probably the most popular way to look for a book. And so if you are someone who likes romance or thrillers or historical fiction, you could tap into subjects, choose the subject that you want to look for, and then you'll be presented with a list of that subject. So in addition to the filters up at the top, you'll see a section that says guides. Now, guides are different from library to library, so yours might not look exactly like mine look, but what these are curated guides by your library that have a specific criteria in mind to help you find books that meet that criteria. So for example, here you see mine have kids and teens. If I tapped into these guides, I would be presented with curated lists that are geared toward those specific audiences. All right. Now, as we continue to scroll farther down the page, that's when you're going to start to see general curated lists. Now, these are curated by your library, and it's a lot like if you were to walk into the physical library during the summer, and on an end cap, you'll see beach reads displayed. And then when you go back into the winter, it's going to change over to cozy mysteries or holiday recipe guides. So unlike the guides and the filters that stay the same, these curated lists are going to be constantly evolving and changing. The library always wants to show us something fresh and new to catch our eye. So like I said, the library icon is what you're going to tap on when you want to browse. Again, you don't know what you're looking for exactly here, but if you do have a specific title or author or series name in mind, that is when you're going to go over to the search icon instead. That's that very first icon there in the navigation bar. And this is where you search for something specific. So up at the top in our search bar, we can type in that title, name, or series name. I'm going to look for a romance here that came out this year called Shipped and tap on search in my device's keyboard. And here you can see the title that I was looking for has shown up at the top. Now, while we're in this list here, I want to point out two different things for you. The first is going to be how you can visually tell the difference between an ebook versus an audiobook. So the reason I point this out is because you can't borrow an audiobook and then decide, oh, I actually wanted to read this and switch it over into an ebook. Libraries purchase those formats separately. So they purchase audiobooks and they purchase ebooks. And so when you want to listen to a book, you're going to look out for a square jacket cover. It kind of looks like a CD case. That's the easiest way that I keep that in mind. And then right below that, you'll see a set of headphones as well as the duration of the audiobook as well. So those are three good visual indicators that you can use to know that that's going to be a book that you listen to. If you want to read the book instead, you'll look out for a rectangular jacket cover. And so it quite literally looks like a book does. Books are rectangular. The ebook is rectangular as well. And that is how you can tell the difference. Now, the other thing I want to point out here is how you can tell if a book currently has a waiting list or if it's available to borrow right away. So you'll see the audiobook version here says place hold next to that jacket cover. That means there's currently someone reading every copy that the library owns, and you'll have to join that waiting list until it's your turn to get the book. Now, it's a very simple process to join the waiting list. All you have to do is tap on place hold, and that will bring you to the confirmation page here. On the confirmation page, you'll even get a little peek of how long the title will take to get to you. This is an approximate time that it would take. And then we can tap on that big maroon button there to confirm. And I've got a little tickle in my throat, so I'm going to mute so I can get it out and not cough right in your ear. So 1 second here. All right, we're good to go now. So up at the top, you can see that we've placed the hold on Shipped. And now Libby's giving us a few options for what to do next. When I place holds, I like to say keep browsing. I go right on back to the list that I was looking at. So you can see it took me right on back, and I have that confirmation that the audiobook is on the hold shelf now. So the borrowing process is just as easy. You could tap on borrow right next to that jacket cover. Or if you don't know what a book is about yet, you can tap directly on the jacket cover itself, and that will take you to the details page. So we'll get to find out what that book is about. And if we decide we sure do want to borrow it, we can tap on borrow right here underneath the jacket cover on this page. Now, up at the top of our borrowing confirmation page, you'll see that we're borrowing shipped for 14 days. 14 days is the default lending period at your library, but you do have the option to switch this to 21 days if you'd like. So you can tap on 14 days there, and you'll be given a list of lending periods, and you can select which one you'd like. I'm going to select 21. And now that's going to be our default lending period moving forward. So we won't have to keep switching this over to 21. Libby's going to remember now that we've selected it that that is our default. Another note is that books do return on their due date automatically. So you don't have to worry about late fees. Libby takes care of that for you. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom here and tap on that big maroon button again to confirm that I want to borrow that book. And now we can see that Libby is downloading this title for offline use. Libby does this automatically when you're on Wi-Fi. And as soon as you get that little library card with a check mark inside of it, that is Libby letting you know that the book is downloaded for offline use, and you can take it up in an airplane on airplane mode or out in the middle of the woods without any cell service, and you'll still be able to access your ebook or audiobook. So now I'm going to go ahead and tap open book here. And what this is going to do is take us to a page where Libby's asking if we want to read this book in the Libby app, so the app that I'm showing you right now, or if you do have a Kindle device that you prefer to read on, like a Paperwhite, then you can deliver your ebooks to that device by tapping Kindle here. Just keep in mind that you do have to sign into Amazon to do that. So keep your credentials handy with you. Now, of course, this presentation is all about the Libby app. So I'm going to open the book in the Libby app so I can show you a few of the key reading features within that. So up at the top and the bottom of the screen, you'll have some menus here. This lower menu is going to show us our reading progress. So I'm on page 1 of 373 currently. To drop those menus off the screen so we can begin reading, you just have to tap in the very center, and that will make them disappear. Then you can start tapping or swiping on the right side of the screen to page forward. Now I'm going to actually move quickly just so I can get to a big chunk of text here, because I want to show you how you can customize your appearance in an ebook so that you can meet your own needs. Now, what we're going to do is tap in the center of the screen, and that's going to bring those menus back up. So at any point, you can tap in the center of the screen to make them reappear or disappear. But right now, we're looking for this A icon. That A stands for appearance. So we're going to change the appearance here in this menu. There are 3 ways that you can change your ebook's appearance. The first is going to be the text scale or the size of the font. So we can use this slider here to increase or decrease the font size. Next, we have lighting. I'm currently in bright mode. That is Libby's default. But we also have sepia as well as dark mode if you want something a little bit easier on your eyes or you want to read at night. And then lastly, we have book design. Now, book design is just Libby's fancy way of saying font. So these are the different font styles that you have available to you. I always like to point out this open dyslexic font size because it may help some users with dyslexia while reading. Now, I am going to change these all back to the default here. And the reason I do that is because these settings are sticky. And what I mean by sticky settings is you only have to make these changes one time, and then Libby is going to deliver the titles to you with those customizations in place. So you're not going to have to keep changing these over and over again. Libby will remember them and you'll be good to go. So you'll do it once per device and you'll be solid after that. Now I'm going to go ahead and hide this menu here. And we're going to pop out of this ebook and go into an audiobook really quickly. So I'm going to tap on back up in the left-hand corner. Just remember, if you don't have those menus on your screen, you just tap in the center of the screen and they will reappear. And I'm going to tap on back. And this takes us over to the shelf. And so I'm going to reorient everyone down in the navigation bar here. So let's head to the bottom of the screen. First, I'm going to point out this Now Reading bar. The Now Reading bar is Libby's way of giving you easy access to the very last book that you had open in the Libby app. So I could tap on this bar here and it will open my book right back up to the page I left off on. I am going to dismiss this for now so that we can see the full navigation bar at the bottom of the screen. And we're going to just do a quick review. So first, we tapped on the library icon to browse the library's collection. This is where we saw the filters at the top, the curated guides, and then finally those general curated collections put together by your library. Then we searched for something specific. We knew the title or author or series name, and so we performed a search. We're now over on the shelf. It looks like a little stack of books there, and it says shelf underneath. And this is the icon that you'll tap when you want to see all of the books that you currently have borrowed in Libby. So here on your shelf, you'll find your loans and your holds. Up at the top, you'll have filters for each of those specifically if we want to individually look at our loans or our holds. On the main page, you'll see your current loans and they'll be organized by the last time you opened them. And if you have any available holds, they will appear at the very top of that. I don't have an available hold right now, so we don't see that, but that will show up as well. So I'm going to scroll down just a tiny bit here and find my audiobook, and I'm going to open that up in Libby by tapping Open Audiobook. And there's just two things that I want to talk about here in the audiobook that I find is very important for new users. So the first is your reading progress. That's going to show up at the top instead of in the bottom like an ebook. So you'll see 24% of the way through here. It gives you some timestamps as well. Down at the bottom of the book, you'll have your player. And once you are ready to begin listening, you'll just tap on play, and that will start the narrator. Now, I can hear him on my end. You should only be able to hear me instead. But this is one of the things that out on the Bookmobile, I make sure that people understand in the audiobook experience. Audiobooks in Libby are designed to play in the background of your device. And what that means is if you tap on play and then minimize the Libby app and start online shopping, or you put your screen to sleep and start doing dishes, you'll still be able to hear your audiobook playing on your device. Now, with that in mind, you will need to tap on pause when you're done listening to your audiobook, pardon me. And that will make sure that narrator stops talking. So sometimes people don't realize how to fully close their apps like on an iPhone. And so their audiobook will continue playing. So just as a safe bet, tap on pause when you're done listening to your audiobook. That will stop the narrator from talking. And then you don't have to worry about losing your spot and having to go back and find it. Okay. We're going to leave this audiobook now. I'm going to tap on back up in the top left-hand corner. And this takes us right on back to our shelf. And so I'm going to reorient everyone again here. I'm going to point out there is a new Now Reading bar. It's showing my audiobook instead. And that's because it's always going to be the very last book that you had open in Libby for easy access. I'm going to dismiss this again. So your shelf, like I said, is your current loans. These are the books you currently have borrowed in Libby. Right next door, you'll see the timeline. It has that little clock there. And your timeline is all of your history within the Libby app. So you'll see all of the loans and holds that you've ever had, as well as renewals and returns. So shelf is current. We can pull it off our bookshelf and begin reading. Timeline is your history. That's going to be everything. We're going to finish off the presentation right in the center of the Libby, or that navigation bar here, with the Libby menu. The Libby menu is kind of like your app settings. So if you want to think of it that way, and it makes it easier, you're welcome to do so. I want to point out the first thing here is Libby's bubble on her head with the number 1 inside. That is Libby telling me that I have a notification waiting for me. So I'm going to tap on Libby's head here. And now that this menu has popped out on the side of the screen, I can see that notification appear up at the top of the screen, or the Libby menu. Now I'm going to dismiss this for now. I'm going to swipe it over to the left, and you'll see a new box has taken its place that says Manage Notifications. Now, Libby's going to actually prompt you to manage your notification the very first time you place a hold. So she's going to bring this menu to you. You're not going to have to come and find it like I am, but I'm popping in here to show you what that is going to look like. So there are 3 ways to be notified about important events in Libby. By default, everyone is going to receive this blue notification line. This is a push notification, and push notifications appear on your device's screen regardless of what app you have open. So you could be reading the news or browsing Facebook, and if an important event happens in Libby, it will show up on your device's screen just like a text message would. Now, if you don't like that and you want something else, you can go to a menu badge. That's going to be an in-app notification. And that means you have to open up Libby to see it. And you actually saw exactly what that looks like. First, it was the little red bubble on Libby's head that had the number 1 inside. That was the first indicator. And then it appeared up at the top of our Libby menu in that box. And I swiped it to the left. That is what that menu badge will look like. Of course, if you don't want a particular event to notify you, you can ignore as well. Now, right under all of the ways you can be notified, you have all of the things that you can be notified about. And the one I want to talk about with you is Hold Ready. I really recommend that you keep your Hold Ready notification set to this blue notification line, that push notification that appears on your device's screen no matter what. And the reason I recommend that is because when it's your turn on a wait list, Libby's going to give you a 3-day limbo period where that book is in limbo and you are the only person who can take action on it. In that 3-day period, you can either borrow the hold, cancel the hold, or have the hold delivered later. And what delivered later means is you can set a time period to stay at the top of the wait list, and people will skip over you in line until that time period ends. And then once it does end, you'll be the next person in line. So really great if you get busy and don't have time to read. Now, in that 3-day period, if you don't take one of those actions, Libby will automatically deliver the title later 1 time as a courtesy. You'll get a second 3-day period at that time. And if you don't take action again, that's when Libby's going to cancel your hold. So you'll have to go and find the book again, rejoin the wait list, and it really can ruin your day if you've waited 5 weeks for a book and then you have to wait another 5 weeks because you missed those limbo periods where you take action. So I know I harp on it a little bit, but I've had my day ruined before, and I want to make sure you're all happy reading. So I'm going to go to the top here and I'm going to tap on back. Pardon me. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is our libraries. So right underneath that notification menu, you can see the section here titled Your Libraries. And I have 3 library cards currently attached to Libby. So 2 of them are my demo cards, and then 1 from a library we have in New York. And so what this is showing is that you can have multiple library cards attached to Libby, and they can be from different libraries as long as you have a valid library card from that library and they use Overdrive services. Now, the reason this might be beneficial is some libraries have shorter wait lists than others. Some libraries purchase copies of titles that others don't. And so you can have more access to books. Now, here in Cleveland, we have access to our city library as well as our county library. So that's 2 library cards we have access to just with our address, and that might be an option for you as well. Now, right below that, we're going to talk about help and support. And the first thing I will talk about is this settings menu here. There's one very important thing in our settings menu. So I'm going to tap on settings. And then down toward the bottom of the screen, you'll see this section called Customize Navigation. And I'm going to tap on that. And again, down at the bottom, you'll see navigation bar, and then this little display here that says labeled icons. I currently have them toggled on. That is what is labeling my navigation bar down at the bottom of the screen. Now, Libby by default does not have these icons labeled. They will look like this instead. However, I really think it's important for new users to label those icons so they can have a clear idea of which tab and icon they need to tap on when they're navigating throughout Libby, at least the first couple of weeks so you can get used to where you need to go. So I really recommend that you rewatch this recording, that at least this part of the recording, to make sure that you can label those icons on your device. All right, I'm going to go back. I'm going to actually tap it twice to go back to the main Libby menu. And down in help and support, the last thing I want to talk about is getting some help. So today you have Joe and I for another 45, 50 minutes. And then after this webinar ends, you can reach out to your library with any questions, or you can come in here in the Libby app and ask questions to Overdrive's technical support team as well. So up at the top of the menu here, we have this box where it says, how can we help? This is really a self-guided help section. So we could type in a keyword, dropped it out of the way. We can type in a keyword like return if we want to figure out how to return titles early. So I'm going to type in return and then tap on search. And you'll see that Libby is going to give me a few articles she thinks that might be relevant to the keyword that I typed in. So returning books is what I was looking for. I'm going to tap on that. And here Libby gave me the answer to how to return titles early. Now, that self-guided help is really the fastest way to get the answer to your question if it's something simple, like how do I return books, or how do I renew a title? If you can't find the answers you're looking for there, that's when you'll see Ask Our Support Team down at the bottom of the menu. If you tap on Ask Our Support Team, you can say you have a problem, a question, or an idea, and this will allow you to communicate with Overdrive technical support specialists via email. They're a friendly group of folks, I promise, and they are Libby experts, so they'll be able to answer any questions that you have or help you troubleshoot any deeper issues and get you back up and reading. So that is all of the need to know basics of the Libby app to start your journey with reading with Libby. I'm going to let Joe take back over the screen here, and he's going to get us into some next steps.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. And thank you, everyone, for walking through the basics with us this morning. We're always excited to give that intro to Libby. Just wanted to remind you, you can ask us questions at any point, and you can even do that anonymously. But if you don't have any questions for us, we do have a few for you. Stick around for our mini quiz. And now is a great time that if you want to take the next few minutes to get a fresh cup of coffee, stretch a little bit, download and play around with the Libby app, now is your time to do that. At 10:45, we'll head into our deep dive session. So just kind of keep that in mind as your time check there. And only stick around for the deep dive if you are feeling confident and ready to take on more. So you just got all of the basics, and we're going to head into that deep dive where we'll move a little faster through some of our favorite features. So it's a great point to hop off if you don't want to take in any more right now. We don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed. And remember, you'll get that email tomorrow from Zoom that includes a link to the full webinar, so you'll be able to review anything you missed if you choose to hop off early. So lots of great content for you this morning. Just wanted to give you that heads up, and I'll give a last call before we go into that session. All right. Well, with all of that out of the way, I'm going to throw up some quiz questions here to test what you've been learning from Marissa. The questions are completely anonymous. Give it your best answer. If you're unsure of the answer, there is an unsure option available. Should pop up automatically on your screen. And for question number 1, in the navigation bar, what do you tap to browse your library's collection? The magnifying glass, the library, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock. So this is for that browse option. You don't know exactly what you're looking for. You're hoping to stumble upon your next great read. And I'll close this one in 3, 2, 1. All right. So when you want to browse your library's collection, you're going to head on into the navigation bar and tap on that library building. From here, you'll be on your digital collection page. You can use the filters up at the top to guide your path. Or speaking of guides, you can tap into any of your library's pre-made lists. You'll find helpful selections there. Or you can keep on scrolling and jump into the different curated lists on this page, just like the end caps in the physical building. If you know exactly what you want, tap on the magnifying glass and you can type in a title, author, or series name and find your results that way. And we'll sneak in, I think we can sneak in, oops. See, we're going to give away the answer there. We can sneak in another question or two. I hope no one minds. We'll give you a little more time here. I had some technical delays at the start. All right, so for question number 2, in the navigation bar, what do you tap to find your current loans and holds? The magnifying glass, the library, the Libby menu, the stack of books, or the clock. So this is for your current loans and holds, anything you're borrowing right now or waiting to borrow right now. And I'll close this in 3, 2, 1. All right, awesome work, everyone. As we kind of saw on the screen here, you need to get to your shelf to find your current loans and holds, and you tap on the stack of books to do that. There's filters up at the top if you want to split out by just your loans or just your holds, or you can scroll through this main page here. We're going to get our last question in before we move on to our deep dive session, and let's dive in an ebook to do that. What are the 3 ways you can customize your ebook's appearance? Select all that apply. You can change the text scale, the lighting, the book design, or the language. And I'll close this in 3, 2, 1. All right, so let's see those correct answers in action. We'll tap on the center of our screen in our ebook and go into the appearance menu. From here, we can change the text scale or the size of the font. Can make any book a large print book this way. You can change the lighting. There's bright by default, but we also have sepia and dark modes available. And then last, you can change the book design or the font the book is presented in. We've got the publisher's default and our Open Dyslexic, along with a few other pre-mades, but I do love the custom option where you can even change things like spacing between lines of text. Now, if you answered language, that is a good answer, but language is something you have to pick before you check out the book, just like you have to if you want the ebook or audiobook version, not something you can change once you've borrowed the book already. And with that, I am going to end our quiz there. We're a few minutes past 10:45, so my apologies on that. I just love doing those quiz questions. And I know we were a little behind because I had those iPad delays, so I wanted to get a few more in there. But all right, this is that last call I promised. We are about to head into our deep dive session where we'll move our way through 4 of our favorite features of the library reading app, Libby. If you are hopping off now, you can tap leave in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And remember, you'll receive the recording tomorrow morning in an email from Zoom. So thank you all so much for joining us. And if you're hopping off, fill out that survey that pops up in your browser. With that said, for those of you sticking around, Marissa and I are still here. You've already met us. We are going to take you through, like I said, 4 of those favorite features. But I wanted to just quick mention one final time. You can adjust your closed captions in your Zoom meeting controls, and you can move them out of your way if they block anything on Marissa's iPad screen just by dragging with your mouse. You can ask questions throughout. We're going to work our way through our 4 tips and tricks first, and then we've got about 10 to 15 minutes set aside at the end of this portion where we'll answer those questions live on screen directly in the Libby app. So we didn't forget about you. We're not ignoring you. We're just going to save those questions till the end. All right. So we have 4 features here. The first 2 kind of go hand in hand. First, we'll show off how to customize your browsing experience. Then we're going to work our way through filtering and refining lists, which will help us find the books we like faster. Before heading into our favorite tip, all about tags, what they are and how we use them. And then we'll wrap up with making and exporting our notes and highlights within an ebook. I'll hand things over to Marissa, and she's going to dive us right in to tips number 1 and 2. Once again, thank you all so much for joining us this morning.
All right, just 1 second here while I get connected. Thank you, Joe. All right. So we're going to dive right into our tips and tricks here. And the first thing we're going to talk about is customizing our browsing experience. So I've stayed on the library icon here. This is where we browse. And now I'm going to hop into one of the lists here. So I'm going to hop into available now, and we're going to start browsing available titles. And what I want to show you in your browsing experience is how you can set app-wide filters that are saved and applied to all lists. And that is going to be done with the preferences button here on the left side of the screen in this dark blue bar. When you tap on preferences, you can select your filters for any filter that you want to continue to filter your browsing in Libby. And so this means once you select a filter, then the next time you search for a book, whether it's a day or a month or a year from now, Libby's going to continue to filter out that unwanted content. So here are all the things that I can filter. I am a big fan of language. So you can see right now when I look for a book, I can see books that are written in any language. But much to my high school friends' teachers' dismay, I only speak English. I can only read in English. And so on my personal device, I always have an English preference set. And that makes it so I'm only seeing books that show up in English. I'm not seeing any of those other languages. I'm not going to be able to read them. So it really just busies up the screen if they are showing up in my search and browsing results. Some other popular preferences that we see out on the Bookmobile are format. So right now I'm looking at any format. That means ebooks and audiobooks. But we've met plenty of people who are audiobook people. They don't or can't read any longer. Maybe it gives them headaches. And so they can select audiobooks here in this list. And that way they'll only see books in the audiobook format show up when they're looking for a book. Same works for ebooks. If you are specifically an ebook reader, you can set that book preference. The last one I'll talk about here is audience. So right now when I look for a book, I'm seeing everything. I'm seeing juvenile, YA, mature, and general content. But I point this one out for anyone who might have a little one at home with their own device. So you could select the juvenile or young adult preference, and that will ensure that they're only seeing age-appropriate content when they're looking for books. They're not gonna come across 50 Shades of Gray. Now, I'm going to just stick with my English preference here, my language preference, and tap on Apply Preferences. And now on the left side of the screen, you can see a number 1 next to that button. And that's Libby letting me know I currently have one filter that is saved and applied to all of my lists and is filtering out content. So that is how you can customize your browsing experience with those preferences that are saved and applied to all lists. I'm now going to move into tip number 2, which is kind of the sister tip to tip number 1. And this is all about filtering and refining your list so that you can find the books that you like faster. And so I'm currently in what's available. This is a great place to start, but I'm going to give a few other criteria here to narrow down the list, because right now we're looking at a list of 36,000 books and 21,000 ebooks. So this is quite a big list that we would be sorting through. So I'm going to give some more criteria here to start narrowing this down. The first criteria is going to be, I want this book to be an audiobook. The second piece here will be the subject or genre. So let's say right now we're looking for a mystery historical fiction title. And then let's say we want a book that came out in the last year, so a newer release. Those 3 pieces of criteria there I'm going to use to start making this list a little more reasonable for us to find our book faster. And I'm actually going to start right here where it says listing, and I'm going to tap on audiobooks here. These are all buttons that are underlined. And when I tap on audiobooks, it's going to filter out those ebooks, and then my demo account also has magazines. So now we're just looking at 21,000 audiobooks. Now I'm going to come over to refine on the right side of the screen. And you're going to think, why does refine have the same exact categories that we saw in preferences? Well, preferences stick and stay. Those will continue to filter out your lists a day, a week, a year from now. Refining is temporary for the search that you're making right at that moment. So we can set our filters in refine, and then the next time we look for a book, it's going to revert back to their default. So let's go to subject first. We want a mystery historical fiction title. So I'm going to choose subject and then come down to mystery. And you'll see that number is already significantly dropping. So I'm at 2,800 audiobooks now, but I'm only looking at mystery titles. So I want to come back to refine and choose my second subject. I'm going to go to subject and then look for historical fiction. So you'll see that number has dropped now to 214. And what I want to point out here is that I'm not looking at a list of mystery titles and historical fiction titles. I'm actually looking at a list of mystery titles that are also historical fiction titles. And I point this out so that you can find niche subjects. And 2 to 4 subject filters combined that's a pretty decent sweet spot. Once you go beyond that, Libby's going to give you a very limited amount of results, because there's very few books out there that are horror, comedy, romance, historical fiction all at once. So 2 to 4 usually gets you where you need to go. Okay, I'm going to come back to refine one more time here, because we need to sort this list now. So I'm going to come down. If you're on a smaller device, you might need to scroll a little bit down to sort by. We're currently sorted by popularity. But like I said, I want a new release. So I'm actually going to sort this by release date instead. And this is going to make it so all the newest books show up at the top. And then as we make our way down the list, those titles will get older. And so we started tip number 1 with over 50,000 titles, and we've narrowed it down to 214, which is a little more reasonable when we're trying to look for a book. Instead of spending all day, probably only going to spend a couple of hours now, and we're going to have fun doing it. So that is tip number 2, how to filter and refine your browsing and searching so that you can find the books that you like faster. And I'm going to stay on this screen here for tip number 3. This is going to be all about tags. Tags are Joe and I's favorite feature in the Libby app. This is one of the things that sets Libby apart from the Overdrive app as well. Overdrive gives you a wish list and a history, but Libby's tagging system is very robust. You can create as many lists as you'd like, and you can name them whatever you'd like. So a couple of examples, you could create a wish list, but you could also start tagging narrators whose voices annoy you. My mom does that. You could also make gift lists for people. My father-in-law is an avid reader. Books are pretty much the only thing that you could gift him during the holidays that he's not going to let sit in a corner. And so I have the task of constantly finding new reading materials for him to gift him at the holidays. And so what I've started to do is create my own tag for him on the Libby app. And throughout the year, as I'm looking for my own books, if I come across a book that he might like, I tag it in the Libby app. And that way, when Christmas rolls around, I can open up my tag in the Libby app at the bookstore, pick out the books that I've already chosen for him. And that way I can spend more time looking for my own books. It's really a selfish endeavor, but I use it as an example to show you how creative you can get with it. You're not limited to anything other than your imagination and what tags you can think of coming up with. And so let's first talk about how to tag titles, and then I'm going to show you how to export those tags out of the app as well. So let's say we're looking for a book right now, and we come across Velvet Was the Night. And maybe we don't want to read that right now, but we want to save it for later. What we're going to do is tap on this tag option. It's the third option there. And here we can create a new tag, or we could tap any of our existing tags if we want to add it to that list. Now, you'll see there's a regular tag section. That is just for organization's sake. You create these regular tags, you name them whatever you want. They don't have any special abilities. There will also be a smart tag section, and there's one that's relevant to you. We can ignore our magazine tag here, but this little receipt icon, that is a borrowed smart tag. And your borrowed smart tag automatically applies to any books that you borrow in the Libby app. And I'll show you why this is really, really helpful. I'll also show you how to delete this as well if you're not interested in Libby automatically tagging your titles. So smart tag, special abilities, regular tag, just for organization's sake. I'm going to go ahead and tap on new tag here. We're going to create a new one to show you that process. So we can name it whatever we'd like. I'm a big fan of genre or subject tags, just because I'm really a mood reader. And so I'll create a mystery tag or a romance tag for when I'm in that mood. So I'm going to just type in mystery here. I don't need to add a description because I know what that means. And then I'm going to go ahead and tap on go. Now you'll see that that tag has showed up next to the jacket cover here. And this is one of my favorite reasons why I love Libby. And that's because as we scroll through this list looking for a book, let's say we come across The War Widow. Well, that has my TBR tag attached to it, my wish list that I created. So in this example for number 2, I probably wouldn't even keep searching for a book. I would just borrow this straight away because I've already expressed interest in that title. And I know that because I have my tag right there showing me. Now, let's say The War Widow didn't show up in our search and we're scrolling. We come across Devil in the Dark Water. Well, that has my borrowed smart tag right next to it. And this means I've borrowed that book in the past. Prior to this tag being released, I probably would have listened to the first 20 minutes of this book or read the first 50 pages. And before that memory sparked that I had read that book again. So this borrowed smart tag really comes in handy to let you know you've read that book, you can skip right over it in your list and keep on looking for a new book to borrow. So that is how you can create tags and why they are important when you're searching and browsing for a book. But now let's go hop into one of our created tag lists, and I'm going to show you how to export them out of the app. So we're going to go down to shelf. This is, remember, where our loans and holds are. You'll see those filters up at the top, and then right next door, you'll see your tags. So we'll tap on tags, and we're presented with all of our tag lists, and we can choose which one we want to view. So I'm going to look at our wish list here. Now, the first thing I want to show you here on this page is this icon over on the right side of the screen. You'll see that library card with the plus sign. If the book is currently on a waiting list, it will look like a calendar instead. But what's really neat is you can tap on that icon and you'll be able to borrow or place the hold from that exact page. You're not going to have to go to the title details page to do that first. So that comes in handy. Even more important is down here at the bottom. You can see all of the library cards that you have attached to Libby and how many copies are available at each of those libraries. So this is a really nice way to search between all of your libraries at once to see who has a shorter waiting list or what library owns a copy. And so that comes in handy. I'm going to drop that out of the way here. We're going to get back to the tip, which is tags. And that's up at the top of the right-hand corner here. I'm going to tap on this actions button. This actions button is where you can rename the tag. Maybe you had a typo, or you can delete the tag. So for anyone who doesn't want that borrowed smart tag, you do have the option to delete that, and you will not have Libby automatically tagging your books. Right here in the center, you'll see export tag. Now, this is a really great feature where you can export your tags out of the app for printing and more. So you just have to tap on export tag. Depending on what you want to do with it, you'll have some different file types here. Let's just go hop into table to show that off. This is going to take you to the data export page. So down at the bottom, you'll see your full tag list with all of the covers and title and author. If you go up to the top right-hand corner, you'll see this share icon. That's a universal icon. That share icon doesn't change app to app. It all looks the same. So that should be recognizable for you. And then you could choose message or email if you want to send this tag list to a friend or a sister that you might want to force to read all of your books so that you can talk to them about it, not gonna name any names. Or you can scroll down and also select print. That's a good option. Maybe you're in a book club and you have, to vote on what book you want to read for book club. You could print out a physical copy for everyone and they could submit their votes. So some good options for you there for that data export. Now that actually finishes off our tip number 3, which is all about tagging titles. I really truly could go on and on and on. Like I said, it's one of my favorite features. I could talk about it all day, but we have our 4th and final tip that's really important to get to, and that's all about notes and highlights in the Libby app. So let's go ahead from our shelf and hop into an ebook here. I'm going to hop into Pride and Prejudice, a book that we've both annotated quite a bit. Joe more than I. He took a full class on Jane Austen back in college. So let's say we want to reference a passage. This could be a sentence or even a word in the book. So what we're going to do is, let's say I want to start with the word the. I'm going to hold my finger on the screen on the word the. So I'm moving my mouse slightly to the left so you can see as I hold my finger on the word the, it starts to turn blue. Now, it's important that your finger stays on the screen as soon as it makes contact. If you tap it, it's going to turn the page or bring up your menus. So hold your finger on the word and then start moving it across the screen until the full passage that you want turns blue. Once it turns blue, that's when you can lift your finger up off the screen and you'll have the option to highlight. So we can make some color choices here. If we want to stay organized, let's go green this time. And then once that highlight is placed, you can tap on the highlight for your note menu to drop down. And here you can type in whatever you want about that passage. I've written full paragraphs here for my book clubs, but just for the sake of demonstration, I'll save this as a note and then tap on save. Now, let's page forward a bit here. And let's say that we now want to reference a note or highlight that we've made at the beginning of the book. So while you're inside your book, what you're going to do is tap on the center of the screen. That's going to bring our menus back up. Oh no, hiccups coming. And then we're going to look for this multi bookmark icon up in the top right hand corner. So I'm going to tap on those 3 bookmarks sitting in a row, and you'll see a full list of all of our notes and highlights are appearing on the screen. Let's say I want to reference this note that I made in chapter 4. I'm going to tap on that note. Libby's going to drag me back to that specific page. I can see my highlighted passage. To see the note, I just have to tap in the center or on the highlight rather, and the note will drop down. So this is how you can access those notes and highlights if the title is still on your shelf. So this is still currently borrowed from the library on our shelves. However, there is 2 different ways that you can find your notes and highlights, even if the title has returned back to the library. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. I'm going to tap on the center of the screen and tap on back up here in the left-hand corner to go back to the shelf. And what we want to do when you want to find the notes and highlights that you've made in a book that's returned to the library is to go to the details page. And we talked about how to do that at the getting started session, but let's go over it again. We're going to go, we know exactly what we're looking for, so we're going to tap on search. And I'm going to double tap on it because I left off on that shipped. That's a good tip for anyone that's new. If you ever get lost, when in doubt, double tap the icons and it'll take you to the top of the main page of that icon there. And now I'm going to type in my keywords. So the guest list, and then I'm going to tap on search. Now, this is another way that that borrowed smart tag comes in handy. Here it's appearing. I know that that's the book that I was looking for. So I'm going to tap on the jacket cover, and that will take us to the details page. Now, once you're on the details page of a book that you've borrowed in the past, you'll see a reading journey. Your reading journey captures any of the actions that you've ever taken with that book. So once you hop into your reading journey, up at the top, you'll see the actions button. And this should look familiar. We can export our reading data. So instead of sending our tags out in an email or a text message or printing them out, instead here we'll be printing out our notes and highlights. Same steps that I showed you in tip number 3, just as easy. Now, if that's taking it a step too far, but you still want to access those notes and highlights, you'll just have to scroll down a tiny bit here. You'll see the timeline for the title appear, and your highlights will show up within here. You just have to tap on the specific highlight that you want to look at. You'll have your full passage that you highlighted, and then in quotations underneath, you'll see the note that you made with it as well. So those are the 2 ways that you can access those notes and highlights, even if the title has returned to the library. And that wraps up tip number 4. I'm going to let Joe take back over here over audio, and we'll get into our Q&A portion.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. So that wraps up our 4 tips and tricks. We do have some time now to answer any questions you might have. We've got about 15 minutes. But of course, if you don't have questions, we'll give you some time back to your morning. Just feel free to send those through using that Q&A button in your meeting controls. One thing I wanted to point out as a reminder, I know Marissa covered it earlier, but remember, while you've got us for the next 15 minutes, you're never without help in the Libby app. You just need to tap on the Libby menu in the center of the navigation bar. And then under Help and Support, tap on Get Some Help. From here, you can type in keywords under the How Can We Help bar. Maybe you wanted a question answered about tags, or you wanted some more info, or maybe you were having a problem with your tags. Type that in, tap on Search, and Libby, just like before, will bring up some suggested articles. We'll go into what are tags. And this would give you some basic info. If you had a question or you wanted some more info on that or a problem, you would go down to Ask Our Support Team. And from here, you can type in your email, whether you've got a problem, a question, or an idea for the future. So just wanted to point that out one final time. All right. Well, sorry, my my computer today is having all sorts of fun. All right. Well, it looks like we don't have any other questions coming through. So I wanted to take a moment here to thank everyone for joining us today. As a reminder, you're going to get an email tomorrow morning from Zoom that includes a link to our recorded webinar. You have 30 days to view this via the link, after which it will expire. But if you'd like to keep that video permanently, you can click the button that says download once you click into the video link. So keep that in mind. If you download the video to your computer, you'll be able to keep it forever. And for our friends from the library who might be in attendance right now, if you want to, you're more than welcome to download that video and share it on the library's website or YouTube channel so everyone can access these helpful steps to get started. I'm going to end our webinar here in just a minute. When I do, a survey is going to pop up in your internet browser. Fill that out for us. Let us know what you thought about today. We really appreciate it. And look at that. Jennifer, I beat you to the punch. You are more than welcome to share that. We love to be able to see even more people access this session today. All right, so with all of that said, thank you all so much for joining us today, and happy reading.
Happy reading.